Okay, I want you to picture something for me. Imagine a world where every single drop of fresh groundwater is just gone, irreversibly depleted. What actually happens to society when the world runs out of groundwater? Seriously, think about it. What happens to our daily routines, our physical bodies, our sanity? Especially when the absolute most basic essence of life becomes the scarcest, most violently guarded resource on Earth. Well, this terrifying scenario leads us to a really haunting conclusion. There's this quote from the text: "We are all the same, equally diluted with sufferings and solutions." It's a chilling philosophical takeaway from a brilliant piece of speculative fiction. And today, that quote is actually going to be the destination of our whole analysis. We're going to figure out exactly how the characters in this world arrived at such a completely devastating realization. So let's just dive right in. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking the absolutely terrifying, intricate world building of the illusion of fresh water. You know, this isn't just your standard story about environmental collapse. Oh no. It is a masterclass in examining human psychology under extreme literal deprivation. All right, let's start with section 1, the macro crisis. To really grasp the nightmare these characters are waking up to every day, we gotta look at the macro timeline. Everything kind of kicks off in 2070 when the groundwater simply vanishes. Boom, gone. The immediate fix: filtering salt water from the ocean. Makes sense, right? But that fails shortly after because the energy costs were just unfathomable. Fossil fuels are totally exhausted and a thick layer of carbon is literally blocking the sunlight. Then, the extracted salt begins to mount up, like we're talking mountains of salt piling up like snow. So who swoops in to save the day? Mega corporations, of course. They propose privatizing the water filter units. Fast forward to the present day in the story, and society is locked into this rigid caste system of premium, platinum, and silver memberships, based entirely on your water access. The 2070 collapse basically handed a blank check for massive corporate overreach. And honestly, the human cost of this timeline is staggering. Have you ever heard the term halophile? In biology, halophiles are organisms that naturally thrive in environments with super high salt concentrations. Well, in this world, the author chillingly repurposes that exact term to describe humans. The workers are forced to trudge along this powdered, damp, factory-lined salt road. Their tires crush the salt like metal crushers. They aren't really citizens anymore, you know? They are halophiles, biological machines forced to adapt to an endlessly toxic, salty environment just to survive. Which brings us to Section 2, Corporate Water Monopolies. Now that we understand the environmental collapse, we've got to talk about the political economy here. Because the crucial point is this: water is the currency, salt is the money burner. Think about that for a second. Water is no longer just something you drink. It's the sole currency of survival. It dictates everything, even political allegiance. The government has essentially dissolved into this weak puppet state run by massive corporations with names like Ozerol, Zista, and Kenori. Workers are literally voting for corporate leaders based entirely on who controls their daily hydration. And you can imagine this extreme corporate control takes a massive psychological toll. Take our protagonist, Kim, for example. He is just filled with despair. He sympathizes with rebels who steal water, and he absolutely refuses to work inhumane extra shifts. But then you contrast him with his coworker, Rubik. Rubik represents total, unquestioned submission and corporate loyalty. The guy walks with a limp, his hair is literally falling out, and yet he's out there passionately defending the company, just hoping his blind loyalty gets rewarded. It's a perfect, painful highlight of the psychological toll of corporate feudalism. So, what is Rubik's ultimate reward for giving his body and soul to Azarul? 15. Just 15 extra liters of water a day. Now, let's put that into perspective for a second. If you take a standard 10-minute shower today, you're using about 80 liters of water. Yet when Rubik begs the manager, hoping for a 50-liter bonus, the manager just casually blames weathered pipelines and haggles him down to a pathetic 15. And the craziest part? Rubik accepts it with overwhelming gratitude. This single number showcases exactly how incredibly cheap human life has become in this universe. Moving on to Section 3, the scent of survival. Okay, this part is wild. How do these corporations biologically brand their workforce? Well, to conserve water, the companies introduced what's called the smelly soap formula. It's a soap designed to clean bodies using barely any water, but it leaves behind a highly specific, trademarked scent. If you work for Ozerol, you wear pink and black, and you smell like a weird mix of mud, paint, and sweets. If you're with Nictar, it's yellow and brown uniforms and the smell of French perfume. Hydro workers? They smell like daisies.
And get this, the research to invent these scents was pursued with more frenzy than the research to actually purify the water. Workers literally embody the trademark smell of their employers.
The complete stripping of individual identity here is perfectly captured in the text. It says, their soap spoke it all. It was their life-saving smell and the company's trademark. Imagine that routine. Every morning, these workers pile onto the bus and it's dead silent. They don't speak. They just sit there like lifeless, heavily scented mannequins on an assembly line. They've completely lost their own natural human scent. The soap has literally become their entire identity. Let's shift gears a bit. Section 4, contrasting realities. Let's get intimately inside Kim's head for a moment. In his imagination, which is fueled by these old bedtime stories from his great-grandfather, he dreams of a natural lake, white birds flying around, and having a lean, weightless body surrounded by lush nature. But man, his physical reality in his corroded Ozerol bathroom is a total nightmare. He washes with moderately burning water, squeezing this brown, donut-shaped soap that foams up and makes his skin itch and break out in acne-like lesions. His mind is just desperately clinging to a lush, wet history that forced evolution is actively trying to erase. Because let's be real, this is what that harsh reality actually does to a human body. Kim's skin is constantly red and sunburnt appearing, almost like he's locked inside a hot iron barrel. He has zero personal smell left. His face is acid-washed and completely hairless because of the tar and asphalt mixed into the overconsumed water. At work, he's just pouring sweat inside a heavy, glass-helmeted, astronaut-like suit, manually shoveling endless barrels of toxic, highly concentrated salt. And why does he put himself through this? Just to earn enough polluted, salty water to keep his dying father, who's suffering from kidney stones, alive for just a little while longer. And that brings us to Section 5, the ultimate illusion. This intense, suffocating desperation finally pushes Kim right to his breaking point. He overhears his corporate manager's son complaining about wanting to visit a natural swimming pool. Kim believes this childhood fairy tale might actually be real, and he just snaps. First, he totally abandons his shift and chases the manager's silent elite salt battery car on a stolen, punctured bicycle, pedaling until his lungs are practically on fire. Next, he follows them way out of the city to a dark, decomposing concrete ruin that looks almost like the Roman Colosseum. Finally, he's creeping inside on his hands and knees in the pitch dark when suddenly he hears it, the impossible, the splash of water, the swish of trees, the hoot of an owl. He bursts into the room and there it is, the Bath-Alive pool. It's this kid-sized glass room pumping incredibly rare premium water, entirely hidden inside this dark, rat-infested, century-old ruined building. The manager and his son are inside this thick glass enclosure, just splashing and laughing, completely insulated from the toxic wasteland outside. For a second, it seems like the literal paradise Kim has been dreaming about while standing in his own corroded bathroom. And the manager's son is absolutely ecstatic. He's yelling, "Look, father, a butterfly! The flowers from the tree, so filled with colors and so fresh." The kid is just marveling at the nature all around them, practically begging his dad to let him take the flowers home. But then, the father's reaction completely shatters the illusion. The building itself is completely ruined, with broken walls everywhere. Those beautiful sounds of nature, they're just playing from cheap speakers hidden up in the ceiling. The butterflies and the colorful trees the boy is pointing at so excitedly, they are nothing but digital illusions projected on the glass for entertainment. When the boy asks to touch them, the manager harshly replies, "Seeing is feeling." And wow, this is the bleak truth of it all. The elite aren't secretly harboring some restored natural world. They're just as trapped in this dry, dead wasteland as the halophiles out on the Sol Road. They're just wealthy enough to afford a pathetic, localized digital simulation of the exact nature that humanity permanently destroyed. Which really brings us full circle. After Kim witnesses all of this, he just cycles back to his miserable life, realizing that both he and the manager are totally trapped. Are we, like Kim, dreaming in his toxic shower, and the manager pretending in his digital glass box, equally diluted with our sufferings and solutions? Do we just construct illusions rather than actually fix the broken reality around us? It's a pretty heavy thought to leave you with, right? But understanding the depth of this world building shows us exactly why this explainer matters. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into such a fascinating source text, and I really hope this leaves you eager to explore even more complex ideas with us next time.